I never thought I'd end up here, writing this out for some kind of advice or validation from strangers online. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs, and boy, did I get blindsided. My name is Mike, and I'm just a regular guy in my mid-30s, married to a woman named Jessica. We've been together for almost a decade, and for the most part, I thought we had a solid marriage. But then again, I guess you never really know until everything comes crashing down. Everything started to shift about 6 months ago. Jessica had always been the bubbly, fun-loving type, but one day she started changing her passwords for everything: her phone, her social media, even the streaming services we shared. When I asked her why she was doing it, she just smiled and said it was for security. "You know how hackers are," she said, rolling her eyes as if I was overreacting. I believed her. I mean, she worked in IT, so she must have known what she was talking about, right? But deep down, there was a nagging feeling that something was off. At first, I brushed it aside. I figured maybe she was just going through a phase or something. But as the weeks went by, I started to notice other changes. She was spending more nights out with the girls, and whenever I tried to reach her, she rarely picked up. And when she did, her voice had this weird, forced cheerfulness, like she was putting on a show. There was one night when she came home late and I could smell cologne on her. I confronted her and she just laughed it off, saying it was from a friend who had given her a ride. I wanted to believe her, but my gut was screaming for me to pay attention. Things spiraled further when I discovered she had been keeping her phone glued to her side like it was a lifeline. One evening, while she was in the shower, I took a peek at her phone. I know, totally not cool, but I was desperate for answers. There, I found a string of messages from a guy named Jake. My heart dropped. The flirty banter was undeniable. Words like "miss you" and "can't wait to see you" jumped off the screen, and with every message I read, a wave of nausea washed over me. That was my breaking point. I had to confront her, but I didn't want to lose my cool. I waited until she got out of the shower, and when she walked into the living room, I was already sitting there, phone in hand. Her face went pale when she saw the screen. "Mike, I can explain." She stammered, her eyes darting around as if she could find an escape route. "Explain what?" "That you've been cheating on me." I shot back, my voice shaking with anger. She tried to deny it at first, claiming it was just harmless flirting and that Jake was just a friend. But I wasn't buying it. My heart was racing. My mind was a whirlwind of betrayal and confusion. I had loved this woman, and here she was, lying to my face. The confrontation escalated quickly. She went from defensive to angry, accusing me of invading her privacy and not trusting her. "You've changed, Mike. You used to be so laid back," she yelled, pointing a finger at me like I was the problem. I felt my world slipping away, the person I thought I knew crumbling right before my eyes. As the night wore on, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions: shock, anger, and deep, gut-wrenching sadness. I had never felt so alone. The woman who had promised me a life together was now the source of my greatest pain. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do anything to make it right, but I was paralyzed by the reality of what was happening. In that moment, I started to understand that this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about trust and what it meant to truly know someone. The realization stung, but it was time to figure out how to move forward. Days passed after that confrontation, and I was left wrestling with my thoughts. What was I going to do? Could I forgive her? Should I even try? The emotional fallout was like a heavy weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I needed to confront my own feelings before I could even begin to think about what came next. After that chaotic confrontation, I found myself spiraling into a haze of confusion and hurt. Each day felt like a battle, and the moments I spent at work were consumed by thoughts of Jessica and her betrayal. I'd sit at my desk, staring blankly at my computer screen, while my mind replayed the events of that night over and over. I couldn't shake the image of her face turning pale as I confronted her, nor could I forget the anger that flared in her eyes, anger at me for seeking the truth. I tried talking to my friends about it, hoping for some clarity or advice. Yet every time I mentioned Jessica's name, I could feel their judgment. "Is she really worth it, man?" one of my buddies asked after I spilled everything. I could tell he thought I was being naive for even considering staying with her. but I felt trapped between love and betrayal. There was a time when I couldn't imagine my life without her, and now it seemed like those memories were tainted. I decided I needed to gather more evidence, not because I wanted to confront her again, but because I needed to understand how deep this betrayal ran. I started looking through her social media accounts, and that's when I stumbled upon a private group she was a part of. It was all about relationships, with posts that ranged from dating tips to explicit discussions about affairs. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through the comments, some from women who were bragging about their extracurricular activities. It felt like the nail in the coffin. How could she be involved in something like this? Was Jake just one of many? That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I had to confront her again, but how? When I finally heard her come to bed, I feigned sleep. I could hear her fumbling with her phone, likely scrolling through messages, and I felt a surge of anger boil beneath my skin. She was betraying me in more ways than one, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could hold it together. The next day, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I began following her discreetly. It felt wrong, but I couldn't help it. I wanted to see for myself where she was going and who she was meeting. I knew she had plans with some friends that night, and I decided to track her. I waited until she left the house, my heart racing. As I got into my car, I followed her to a local bar that I had never heard of before. It was a dive tucked away between a few stores, and something about it felt off. I parked a distance away and waited. My anxiety spiked as I watched her walk in, looking all done up in a tight dress that accentuated her curves. She looked beautiful, but that beauty felt tainted now. I wanted to rip that dress off her and shake the truth out of her. I couldn't stand the idea of her being out there looking so carefree while I was left in turmoil. After a while, I saw Jake walk in. My heart sank as they greeted each other with a hug that lingered just a bit too long. It felt like a punch to the gut, and I was filled with an overwhelming mix of anger and despair. They sat at the bar, laughing and flirting, and I couldn't bear watching any longer. I turned the car on and drove home, tears streaming down my face. The love of my life was out there, giving herself to another man, while I was left feeling like a fool. When I got home, I was a wreck. I could barely breathe, the weight of betrayal crushing my chest. I wanted to call her and confront her right then and there, but I knew I had to strategize. I needed to be calm and collected when I approached her again. It was time to show her that I wouldn't be treated like this. The next day, I decided to put my plan into action. I would confront her, but not just about the affair. I'd lay out everything I had found. I wanted her to see the depths of her lies, to force her to confront her actions head-on. I felt a mix of determination and dread as I prepared myself for the fight. That evening, I called her home from work, my heart pounding in my chest. "We need to talk," I said when she answered. Her voice turned serious instantly. "About what?" she asked, and I could hear the tension building. "Just come home. We need to talk about us," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. The anticipation gnawed at me as I waited for her to arrive. Every minute felt like an eternity. I thought about how all my hopes for our future seemed to be hanging by a thread. When Jessica finally walked through the door, I could see the confusion written all over her face. She asked what was wrong, but I held my ground. "I know about Jake, Jess. I know about everything." Her expression shifted instantly from confusion to panic. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. This was my moment. I laid out everything I had discovered: the messages, the late nights, the secrets. I watched her face turn from shock to defiance, and part of me reveled in the chaos I had stirred. "You're being ridiculous, Mike. You can't just assume things," she exclaimed, trying to regain control of the situation. But I could see the cracks forming in her facade, and it gave me a sliver of satisfaction. "I'm not assuming anything, Jessica. You've put yourself in a position where I can't trust you. You've chosen him over me, and now it's time to face the consequences." My voice was steady, but inside I was shaking. This was it, the moment of truth. I wasn't just confronting her about infidelity. I was standing up for myself. The emotions ran high as we entered into a heated discussion, and it became clear that this was more than just an affair. It was about trust, commitment, and whether we could even salvage anything from the wreckage. The stakes had never been higher, and I was finally ready to confront the truth and its consequences head-on. The tension in the room was palpable as Jessica and I stood facing each other, both of us on the brink of a precipice we had created together. I could see the anger flash in her eyes, but beneath it lay a hint of fear. I had just pulled the rug out from under her, and she wasn't sure how to recover. I felt a mixture of triumph and dread as I prepared for the storm that was about to unfold. "Mike, you can't just accuse me without proof," she blurted out, her voice rising. "You're twisting everything I've done, you're overreacting." Her typical defense mechanism of deflection was in full swing, and even though I was prepared for it, it still stung. "Overreacting? Jess, I've got messages, I've followed you. I saw you with him, you can't deny this." I pushed back, my patience wearing thin. "You've been lying to me for months while pretending everything was okay. How can you act like I'm the one who's crazy here?" She opened her mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, her face contorted from anger to desperation, and I could almost see the gears turning in her mind. I knew she was trying to formulate an excuse that might salvage her pride, but I wasn't interested in her excuses anymore. I had heard them too many times before. "Look, I thought you were better than this," I said, my voice steadying. "We had something real, something worth fighting for, but you've made your choice, and now I need to know if you want to try to fix this or if you're choosing him." I could feel the weight of my words hanging in the air like a heavy fog. For a moment she stood there, eyes wide, her breathing quickening as she processed what I was saying. Then in a fit of rage she erupted, "You think you're so perfect, don't you? You're acting like a martyr. While I've been trying to keep this marriage intact, maybe if you spent more time focusing on us instead of just yourself, I wouldn't have needed to find someone else." Her words hit me like a slap. That wasn't the Jessica I knew, the supportive partner who would have never said something like that. It was as if I was looking at a stranger, a woman who had let her desires lead her down a path that had ultimately betrayed everything we had built together. "Is that really how you feel?" I asked, fighting back the hurt. "You think I didn't care? I've given you my all for 10 years. I've stood by you through everything. But now it feels like you've treated me like I'm nothing. Maybe you should have thought about that before you snooped around," she retorted, her voice rising again. "You had no right to invade my privacy. You're the one who's been untrustworthy." The irony of her accusation wasn't lost on me. Here she was, the one who had cheated, accusing me of being untrustworthy because I sought the truth. It was maddening, and I felt my resolve harden. "I don't regret finding out the truth," I said, my voice low but firm. "What I regret is that it had to come to this. We could have talked about our issues, Jess. Instead, you chose to run away and seek comfort in someone else's arms. If you're willing to choose him over our marriage, then we're done." Her eyes softened for a moment, and I could see the flicker of guilt cross her face. But then she shifted, erecting the walls once more. "You don't get to decide that for me, Mike. Maybe this is what I needed. A break from your endless criticism. Maybe I wanted to feel desired again." That phrase hit me harder than any of her insults. "Desired again," I echoed, feeling the sting in my chest. "Do you honestly believe seeking that desire in another man is the answer? You had me, someone who loved you unconditionally. You threw that away for a fleeting moment of excitement. We went back and forth like this for what felt like an eternity." I wanted to scream, to make her understand the depth of my pain. But no matter how many times I laid out the truth, Jessica kept retreating into her justifications. I was realizing that this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about our entire relationship and the cracks that had formed over the years. Eventually, the conversation turned to silence. Jessica crossed her arms and looked away, refusing to meet my gaze. It was as if the weight of our shared history had become too much for her to bear. I felt the desperation clawing at my insides. I needed answers, but instead I was left with a gaping void of uncertainty. "Do you even want to fix this?" I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The vulnerability in my question hung in the air between us. I could feel my pulse quickening, waiting for her response. I don't know," she admitted, her voice trembling. The admission was like a dagger to my heart. "I'm confused, Mike. I never thought I'd end up here. It just happened." "Just happened doesn't cut it, Jessica. You made choices. You chose to betray me, and now we're standing in this mess you created. I replied, my anger slowly giving way to sadness. The silence that followed felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on both of us. I could see the tears welling in her eyes, and for a moment I hesitated. I wanted to reach out, to comfort her, to tell her that we could find a way back to each other. But with every choice she had made, that comfort felt like it was slipping further away. Maybe it's time we face the truth, I said, my voice breaking slightly. Maybe we're beyond repair. The finality of my words echoed in the room. I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss washing over me. We had tried to build a life and a future together, and now it felt like all of that was hanging by a thread. The question loomed large in the air. Could we ever find a way back, or was this the end of our story? Jessica's face fell, her shoulders slumping as she absorbed the weight of the moment. It was clear that the walls we had built around us had begun to crumble, leaving us both exposed and vulnerable in a way we hadn't anticipated. In that moment, I realized that this fight was just for our marriage. It was a fight for our own individual selves. Whatever the outcome, we were both going to have to reckon with the choices we had made and the lives we had built around them. I felt the heartache settling in, and I knew the road ahead would be filled with tough conversations and even tougher decisions. As the silence lingered in the air, I felt the weight of reality pressing down on me. The rawness of our confrontation laid bare every unspoken issue that had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long. Jessica was no longer just my wife, but a woman struggling with her choices, and I was no longer just her husband, but a man grappling with betrayal. We were both lost in a labyrinth of emotions, and there was no clear way out. Jessica finally broke the silence, her voice shaky. What do we do now, Mike? I don't want to lose you, but I can't ignore what happened. Her admission felt like a small crack in the wall she had built around herself, and I sensed the vulnerability beneath her anger. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. I don't want to lose you either, but I can't ignore the fact that you've chosen to betray my trust. We can't just sweep this under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. She nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I know I messed up. I've spent so much time feeling inadequate, and when Jake showed me attention, it felt good. It felt like I was worth something again. Her voice broke, and I could see the regret etched all over her face. It was a confession that hit me hard. She was admitting to her vulnerability, exposing herself in a way that felt both painful and revealing. I get it, Jess. I really do, I said, my voice softer now. But seeking validation outside our marriage isn't the solution. We could have worked through this together. We were supposed to support each other through thick and thin. I thought I was doing that by keeping things separate, she replied, her voice trembling. I didn't want to burden you with my feelings. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting me? I scoffed, feeling the anger rise again. You were protecting yourself. You thought you could have your cake and eat it too without considering how it would affect us. We're supposed to be partners, Jess. You should have come to me instead of running away. She sighed deeply, the weight of my words hanging in the air. You're right. I should have talked to you. I didn't handle things well. I realize that now, but it's too late. Is it? I asked, a glimmer of hope flickering within me. Is it really too late? I mean, if we want to salvage this, if we want to try to rebuild what we had, we have to be open to that possibility, but it's going to take work from both of us. Jessica looked up, her eyes locking onto mine. What if I'm not ready to give up Jake? What if I don't know how to let go? Her voice was a mixture of fear and defiance, and I could see that she was still torn. Then we have a decision to make, I said, my heart racing. You need to choose. Do you want to stay in this marriage and fight for us, or do you want to pursue something you've started with him? I can't compete with another man. I've fought for you every day of our marriage, but I need to know where your loyalty lies. Tears spilled down her cheeks and she covered her face with her hands. I feel like I'm being torn apart, Mike. I don't want to hurt you, but I can't pretend this didn't happen. I don't know if I'm strong enough to let it go. The admission felt like a knife to my heart, but it also felt like a turning point. This is hard for both of us, Jess, but clinging to Jake isn't going to fix the problems we have. It's only going to lead to more pain. If you really want to save our marriage, you need to give it everything you've got. No more secrets, no more lies. Jessica nodded, wiping her tears. I need time. I can't decide everything right now. I could feel the weight of her words, and I knew time was a luxury we didn't have. We can take time, but we need to set boundaries. You've had your time with Jake, and it's been two. If we're going to work on this, you need to cut him off completely. She bit her lip, hesitating. I don't know if I can just stop talking to him. It's complicated. Complicated or convenient? I shot back, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. You have to choose between what you want and what you need. Do you need someone who will make you feel good in the moment, or do you want a partner who will stand by you through the struggles? The room felt charged as she processed what I said. I could see she was struggling, torn between her desires and the reality of our marriage. I want to be with you, but I don't know how to let go of the excitement, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. It's like I'm scared of losing both of you. Then maybe we need to look at what's missing in our own relationship, I suggested, trying to keep my tone calm. What led you to seek comfort in someone else? Where did we go wrong? Honestly, I felt like everything was too predictable, too routine, she admitted, her voice growing stronger. We stopped being spontaneous. I felt like we were just going through the motions. I didn't want a boring marriage, Mike. That admission struck a chord. I had noticed the shift too, but I hadn't known how to address it. So we need to rediscover ourselves, rediscover each other. It's not too late for us if we're both willing to put in the effort, but it starts with you cutting ties with Jake. She breathed deeply, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. You're right. I need to face this head on. If I want to be with you, I have to let go of the other side. I can't have both. A wave of relief washed over me, but I also knew that I needed to be cautious. This isn't going to be easy, Jess. It's going to take honesty, communication, and a lot of work, but if we want to move forward, we have to do it together. I know, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I'll do it. I'll cut him off and focus on us. I promise. Okay, I replied, feeling a glimmer of hope. Let's take the first step together. We can start finding ways to bring the excitement back into our marriage. We'll create new memories, new experiences, and maybe, just maybe, we can rediscover that spark we once had. As we sat there together, the weight of our conversation began to shift. It wasn't a perfect solution, and I knew we still had a long way to go, but for the first time in a while, I felt a flicker of optimism. Maybe we could find our way back to each other. Maybe we could rebuild what had been broken. It wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to fight for us. I loved this woman, despite everything, and I believed that we could emerge stronger if we both committed to the journey ahead. In the days that followed our intense confrontation, the atmosphere in our home had shifted. The weight of our conversation hung in the air, but there was also a newfound determination in both of us. Jessica had promised to cut ties with Jake, and while I felt a cautious sense of hope, I also knew that words were just words until they were backed by action. Jessica took the first step by blocking Jake's number on her phone in front of me. It felt like a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. I could see the mix of relief and sorrow on her face as she did it. I know this is the right thing to do, she said, her voice steady, but part of me is still scared of losing that thrill. I get that, I replied, trying to be understanding. But we need to create our own thrills again together. Let's plan some things that excite us, things we used to love doing before everything became so routine. We began brainstorming ideas, and it was refreshing to see Jessica opening up like she used to. We talked about spontaneous weekend getaways, trying new restaurants, and even taking a cooking class together. It felt like we were slowly peeling back layers of resentment and hurt, trying to rediscover each other in ways we had long neglected. One Friday night, we decided to take a break from the norm and plan a date. I rented a small cabin by the lake, hoping the change of scenery would rekindle some of the passion we had lost. I wanted to remind her of the good times we had once shared, the laughter, the intimacy, the connection that had brought us together in the first place. As we drove out to the cabin, I could feel the tension between us begin to melt away. Jessica looked beautiful under the soft glow of the sunset, and for a moment I felt a flicker of the love I had thought was lost. We talked and laughed, reminiscing about our early days together, stupid inside jokes, silly adventures, and moments that had made us fall in love. The cabin was cozy, surrounded by trees with a view of the lake that was breathtaking. We settled in, and as the night wore on, I could feel the connection between us deepening. We cooked a simple dinner together, laughing as we fumbled with the ingredients, and for the first time in a long time, I could see the light in Jessica's eyes. After dinner, we sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, sipping wine and watching the stars. It felt intimate and genuine, as if we were rediscovering the magic of our relationship under a canopy of stars. I took a deep breath, my heart swelling with hope. "Do you remember our first camping trip?" I asked, trying to evoke the nostalgia of simpler times. Her eyes sparkled at the memory. "How could I forget? We got lost for hours and I was convinced we were going to starve." She laughed, the sound warming my heart. "And then we ended up at that random diner where we had the best pancakes of our lives." I added, feeling the warmth of her laughter seep into my bones. "Yeah. And you insisted on ordering that ridiculous fruit platter," she quipped, and we both burst into laughter. It felt good to share those moments, to let the past remind us of why we had wanted to be together in the first place. As the night wore on, I felt the tension that had been hanging over us begin to dissipate. I reached for Jessica's hand, intertwining our fingers. "I love you, Jess," I said, sincerity in my voice. "I want to keep building on this. I know we can do it if we both put in the effort." "I love you too, Mike," she replied, her voice soft. "I'm willing to fight for us. I want to make this work." In that moment, as we sat together under the stars, I could feel the bond between us beginning to strengthen again. It wouldn't be easy, but we were taking the first steps toward healing. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of rebuilding. We made a concerted effort to communicate openly about our feelings, our needs, and our fears. We started going on new adventures, hiking trails, trying out new activities, and even revisiting places that held special memories for us. Each experience felt like a small step toward regaining what we had lost. However, the road wasn't without its bumps. There were moments when Jessica slipped up, reaching for her phone as if old habits were hard to break. She would catch herself and put it down, apologizing profusely. "I'm sorry, Mike. I'm still getting used to this," she would say, guilt written across her face. I often found myself wrestling with moments of insecurity, wondering if she was truly committed to leaving Jake behind. I remembered the conversations we had, how she had felt inadequate and sought validation elsewhere. Those doubts crept in uninvited, making me question whether our efforts were enough. One evening, after a particularly fun day of hiking, Jessica suggested we sit down and talk through our feelings. "I want to be completely honest with you, Mike. I don't want to fall back into old habits," she said, her tone serious yet vulnerable. "Okay," I replied, feeling a mix of apprehension and curiosity. "What's on your mind?" "I still think about Jake sometimes," she admitted, her gaze dropping to the floor. "Not in a romantic way, but I think about what it was like to feel that excitement. I don't want to go back to that, but I need to figure out how to make our relationship exciting again." Her honesty hit me hard, but I appreciated her willingness to open up. "I get it, Jess. I think about our past too, how we lost that spark." I took a deep breath, willing to be vulnerable. "I want you to know that I'm here and I'm committed to making things better. It's going to take time, but we can do it together. Can we make a pact?" she asked suddenly, looking me straight in the eyes. "Let's promise to communicate openly about our feelings and our needs. No more hiding or running away. If something feels off, we need to talk about it." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "Absolutely. We need to be a team. I'm in, Jess. I'm committed to this." In that moment, I could feel a shift taking place. It wasn't just about cutting ties with Jake or clearing the air. It was about rebuilding the foundation of our relationship. With every conversation, every adventure, we were laying the groundwork for a stronger, healthier partnership. As the weeks went by, I could see the changes in Jessica. She was becoming more open, more engaged, and I could tell that she was truly trying to shed the remnants of her past mistakes. We started to laugh more, to enjoy each other's company again, and I felt the walls we had built around our hearts slowly start to crumble. But just as I began to feel a sense of peace and hope blossoming in me, I received a text that would shake the ground beneath my feet once more. It was from Jake. The message was simple, yet It sent me spiraling back into the turmoil I thought we had begun to overcome. "Hey, I miss you. Let's meet up." My heart dropped. I felt the color drain from my face as I read it again, disbelief washing over me. Just when I thought we were on the right path, the past came roaring back, and I knew I had to confront Jessica again. It was now or never, and I was not about to let her slip through my fingers again. The message from Jake sat like a lead weight in my stomach. I stared at my phone, heart pounding in my chest as I wrestled with an overwhelming flood of emotions: betrayal, anger, confusion. I had just begun to believe that Jessica and I were making real progress, and now the specter of her past was looming over us once again. "Mike," Jessica called from the kitchen. I could hear her laughter, the sound light and carefree, contrasting sharply with the storm brewing inside me. I took a deep breath, wrestling with myself. I knew I had to confront her, and I had to do it soon. I walked into the kitchen where she was, prepping dinner, a smile on her face. "What's wrong?" she asked, sensing the tension in my demeanor. I didn't waste time with small talk. "I got a text from Jake," I said, my voice steady but firm. Her expression shifted, the smile fading as she looked at me wide-eyed. "What did it say?" "He wants to meet up. He misses you," I replied, watching as color drained from her face. "What the hell, Jessica?" I can't believe this," she stammered, her hands shaking slightly as she put down the knife. "I thought I was done with him. I thought I had made it clear that I wanted to focus on us." "Apparently not. What does he want? What are you going to say?" I pressed, my frustration boiling over. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. You told me you were committed to cutting ties." "I am committed. I don't want him, Mike. I want you," she exclaimed, her eyes wide with panic. I don't know why he's reaching out. I thought I had made it clear when I blocked him. I thought he'd gotten the message. Clearly he has." I shot back. My emotions were escalating, fear and anger intertwining. "You know this isn't just about you anymore, it's about us. What he did to us." Her face collapsed into a mask of desperation. "I swear I didn't reach out to him. I didn't want to keep him in my life. I thought I was being strong enough to handle it." "Strong enough?" I repeated incredulously. "You think ignoring him is enough? You need to be clear with him. You need to tell him that you're done for good. No more maybe or I miss you. This is a test, Jessica, and you need to pass it." She nodded slowly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You're right, I should text him back. I need to tell him to leave me alone. I love you, Mike. I want to be with you." The sincerity in her voice cut through my anger. I could see she was genuinely shaken by the prospect of Jake re-entering our lives, and I took a breath, willing my heart to calm down. "Then do it. Right now. Send him a message and put this to rest." "But what if he doesn't take that well?" she asked weakly, her voice trembling. "Then you deal with it. You made your choice when you decided to pursue him. Now you need to show that you've chosen me." Jessica wiped away her tears and reached for her phone. Her fingers trembled as she typed, and I could feel the tension radiating from her. "I can't believe this is happening," she whispered. "You can do this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You fought for us before and you need to fight for us again. Text him and let him know this is over." After a moment that felt like an eternity, she hit send. I watched her face as the realization sunk in. She was severing ties with the past, reclaiming her choice to be with me. I hoped that this time it would stick. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. I could see her body tense as she read the response. "He's angry," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "He wants to know why I'm doing this." "Tell him the truth," I urged. "Tell him that you're committed to your marriage and that you're done with him. No more excuses." After a moment of hesitation, she started typing again, her brows furrowing in concentration. The seconds ticked by as she composed her message, and I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on us both. Finally, she hit send. "Done," she said, exhaling shakily. "I told him that I love you and that I'm not interested in anything with him anymore. It's over." A weight lifted off my shoulders, but I also knew that we were far from finished. The battle wasn't just with Jake, it was with the doubts that would inevitably linger. "Thank you for doing that," I said softly, reaching for her hand. "I know it wasn't easy." She nodded, her eyes shimmering with tears. "I'm scared, Mike. I don't want to lose you again. I want to make this work." I pulled her into my arms, holding her close. "You won't. We're in this together. But we both need to commit to making improvements and pushing through the tough times. If we can do that, we can move forward." For the rest of the evening, we talked openly. We discussed what it would take to rebuild our trust, how to make each other feel valued, and how to ensure that we didn't fall into the same patterns that had led us here. It was cathartic and necessary, and while it wasn't easy, each conversation brought us one step closer to healing. As the night wore on, I could feel the warmth returning to our relationship. We may have been battered and bruised, but we were still standing together. In the weeks that followed, we continued to focus on our relationship, actively working to rebuild the love we had nearly lost. We made it a point to engage in meaningful conversations, share our thoughts, and be open about our desires. We started date nights again, re-exploring the joys of being together, and even found ourselves laughing more than we had in years. I learned that trust isn't built overnight, and the road to recovery was filled with challenges, but I was committed to walking that path with Jessica. We both were. Looking back, I realized that this experience, as painful as it had been, forced us to confront the hidden fractures in our marriage. It taught us the importance of honesty, communication, and the necessity of being present for one another. As we moved forward, I was reminded that love is not just about the good times. It's about navigating the storms together and emerging stronger on the other side. And in that journey, I found hope. Hope for our future, hope for a renewed love, and hope that we could create a new beginning despite the shadows of our past.